Thank you for joining us for our news review. Time now for us to get into the papers. And shortly, we'll be joined by the Executive Director of Solidaire Ghana, Benjamin Akakpo. He'll be our guest joining us to delve into the issues. But let's start with the papers we have here. Today we have the Daily Graphic, Ghanaian Times Daily Guide, the Chronicle newspaper, and the Business and Financial Times. Well, what does the Daily Graphic have to say this morning? AG bears teeth at tax evaders, warns culprits will face the law. I'm talking about the Attorney General. There's also harnessing after potential. Police, international agencies collaborate to enhance security. That's according to the IGP. Making Ghana Mecca for Pan-Africanism, a hub, so to speak. December in GH boosts tourist arrivals. But there have been some concerns as well on the back of some of the happenings in December and sustainability issues, among others. There's also this picture that is created. Yesterday, I was out and about, and you would realize that a lot of the foreigners who come into the country have a certain perspective, limited perspective, by the way, because they come and they are in the plush hotels or the average hotels. They are going to certain places. I don't want to mention them in order not to advertise any place. And so that is their image of Ghana. But Ghana goes a lot beyond that. The multidimensionally poor are here. The communities without electricity and water are also here. So there's a different side that they don't get to see. And sometimes, yes, every person would like to put his best foot forward. Every country would like to sell itself on its selling points. But are we getting it right in other areas? So that, just imagine, if we were able to get it right even in the touristic centers we have across the country, so many of them littering the length and breadth of our country, yet we are not improving them, we are not bettering them in any way. Up north, so many. Down south, so many. In the middle belt, same. What are we doing with them? So if we really want to go hard on tourism, let's not just wait for December. Do you get my point? Why wait for December when you can milk the industry from January? Anyway, technical team to review individual bondholders' proposal. Let's get into the details of the stories now. And companies that underdeclare their incomes and also use other dubious means to evade taxes will face the full rigors of the law, the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, Godfrey Adame, has warned. In an exclusive interview with the Daily Graphic last Tuesday, he said tax evasion, avoidance, and under-declaration of income were pervasive in the country, a situation that robbed the state of crucial revenue for development. But of course, we do know that while tax evasion is criminal, tax avoidance is not. So yes, it may be pervasive, but is he hinting at any dynamics to do with our laws and what could change? I think we have a tax evasion problem, quoting him, as a country. Our system of monitoring and even the manner in which accounting is done and how businesses are not captured within the tax net leads itself to tax evasion. He mentioned the legal profession as one industry that was a big culprit of tax evasion. Interesting. Adding that some lawyers collected all sorts of fees without paying taxes on them. While encouraging lawyers to be good citizens and pay taxes in line with their oath, the AG said his office would not hesitate to prosecute any lawyer found wanting for evading tax. To go on further with that story, Mr. Dame said his outfit was collaborating with the Ghana Revenue Authority and other agencies to ensure that companies that shortchanged the country in the payment of taxes were legally made to honor their tax obligations. The collaboration, he explained, involved the AG's department reviewing and examining tax cases from the GRA, as well as giving legal support to help the GRA effectively discharge its mandate. He explained that when tax assessments were made, usually companies were given time to pay, and that had to do with prosecuting such entities. And he said very soon we'll prosecute other companies no matter how big they are. It is up to the companies to either pay or face prosecution. All right, so there are so many dynamics in there that we can look at, and MTN is also cited in there, and you may have seen that recent story. On January 11 this year, the GRA slapped telecommunications giant MTN with an 8.21 billion Ghana cedi tax liability. The assessment includes penalties and interest charges. Now, the tax assessment followed an audit by the GRA on MTN Ghana for the period 2014 to 2018 using a third-party consultant that we have all come to know now as Safari Tech. using a third-party consultant as well as a new methodology based on call data records, recharges, and other data. But we should also bear in mind, MTN strongly disputes the accuracy and basis of the assessment, including the methodology used in conducting the audit, the company said in a press release on January 13. So that issue is still pending. But just to wrap with this comment, in terms of that Supreme Court decision, the GRA has recently been emboldened in its tax assessments mandate following a Supreme Court decision which affirmed a legal provision that makes it mandatory for taxpayers dissatisfied with a tax assessment by the GRA to pay 30% of the tax before challenging its legality. In a unanimous decision on November 30 last year, the 7-member panel of the Apex Court dismissed the suit filed by one Richard Amohene challenging the constitutionality of the said law. And so those are the latest dynamics there in respect of this matter. Very interesting one, and I look forward to seeing how it will pan out in real terms, in terms of being activated. And I also look at how the MTN issue will pan out. Are we shifting the goalposts? Are we being fair to them? And on the other hand, has the company had any dealings that maybe did not inure to the tax benefits of the country? So this way or that, we'll see what happens. Let's get to our guests now. Okay, so he'll be joining us shortly. Benjamin Akakpo, Executive Director of Solidaire Ghana. Let's get into some other stories. Harnessing after potential. Police international agencies collaborate to enhance security, and that is coming from the IGP. The story is on page 13. Now, the Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampare, stated that the police are collaborating with regional and continental security agencies to improve security in the country, especially as it hosts the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, popularly known, or for short, AFTA. The move is in line with an African Union Peace and Security Council Insight report that indicated that in spite of the potential of AFTA to contribute to economic development, peace and security on the continent, its implementation could be hampered by insecurity. And he was speaking, of course, on the sub-theme Governance, Peace and Security Preparedness for African Continental Free Trade Area. And he said during the review of the service's operational strategy and reflection on public perception, it was found that, quote, most of the public were dissatisfied with the services we delivered. To address the issue, he said the service had formulated and implemented 9 action point initiatives, including enforcing the law without fear or favor, community engagement, leveraging technology to fight crime, police personnel fighting crime with commitment and dedication, dealing with indiscipline and carnage on the road, and serving with respect for the public. I've seen an improvement in this, though, serving with respect for the public, especially some of those that line roads nowadays. You would see them all over, practically at every stop. I've forgotten, they have this name. I'll try to recall and then put it out there. But yes, police visibility, the police visibility teams. And they seem to be doing some good job. But in other aspects, there's still a long way to go. We'll see how that pans out. Well, let's take a look at the story as well by Kester Abram Kranche. Technical team to review individual bondholders' proposal. And we know today there's going to be that confab between some of these bondholders and the Ministry of Finance. So the Ministry of Finance has reached an agreement with the leadership of the Individual Bondholders Forum to have a technical team to review its petition on the government's domestic debt exchange program. The Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, told the media after a closed-door meeting with the members of the forum that government was open to discussing alternative means of making the DDEP successful. He said the government anticipated 80% participation in the debt swap program after discussions with all the stakeholders. And 80% participation by individual bondholders, he said, would help the government to get into the perimeters of 55% debt to gross domestic product, essential to achieve an IMF deal. The question is, can they get the 80% participation? So far, all the bondholders, many of them, have ganged together, so to speak. We've heard from Senior Hosi and his group, who have now latched on to Martin Kpebu and the caucus that he represents. So it's a bit of a stretch. It's a bit of a wonder whether the finance ministry can pull through on this. Some say that without a debt exchange program, our economy is going to be in dire straits, on the ropes. But others also say we shouldn't be paying the price for the sins of those who mismanaged the economy. In the end, though, where should we go? What do we do? Our economy must keep running. And more importantly, we must get that IMF program. How do we get it without debt sustainability? But are we willing to bear the brunt, the pain of doing so? Just before I bring in my guest, I saw a video recently and it really broke my heart. I showed it to some colleagues yesterday about a man who worked in Holland, the Netherlands, by the sweat of his brow, made a bit of money, came, invested it, and this year he's getting practically nothing. He says he invested the money in the banking sector, collapsed, it sort of was wiped out. Then he felt, look, my money is going to be safe if I go to the nation's bank, the Ghana Commercial Bank. And now, with his sum of money, this is what he has to face. And he was very plaintive, saying, I didn't come begging anyone for money. I can no longer work. I am advanced in age. But what I have worked for, I can't even get anymore. So there are so many dynamics to play with. But let me bring in Benjamin Asuman, Executive Director, Solidaire Ghana. Mr. Asuman, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you join the conversation. Since we're on the bondholders, individual bondholders proposal, what is your take on that matter? So many people have said that, look, this is going to wreck our livelihoods, so to speak. And in some instances, people are going to look at getting full benefits only after what, 2034, 10 years plus from now. What's your take on it?
Well, Ben, this is a very sad situation we find ourselves in as a country. As a developing country, you must be conscious to develop the financial sector and the capital market. So people are encouraged as you come out of school and you get a job to learn how to save on the capital market and save such that when you retire or when an eventuality, comes your way, or even when you want to improve on the living conditions that you find yourself, you'll be getting interest on the little investment that you will have made. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a situation where we are making total nonsense of that advice, that wise counsel that has been given to people, for decades. And so, for somebody to invest and for no fault of his or hers, the government wakes up one morning to say that we are unfortunately not going to give you anything on your investment. There will be no returns. And that we are, as a matter of fact, spreading any gain you will make for 15 years. It's a sad situation. And as heartbreaking as it is, we as a country must be bold enough to tell ourselves the truth. I find it so often that in Ghana, we are always diplomatic in telling the truth to our people. And as a result, we don't get to deal with people, the way people should be dealt with. This morning, I woke up to a news item from New Zealand, where the New Zealand leader of government says that I have no further, goodies in my tank. My tank is empty. I cannot continue as leader of government, so I'm stepping down. I'm not going to run. Being bold enough to tell the people of her nation that I cannot continue in office. Here, we don't find it. Leadership don't retire when they know that they have nothing left for the people. They continue to stay in office when clearly they are underperforming or they are not performing at all.
Right.
So that's where we find ourselves. It's unfortunate, but we must both enough to tell ourselves the truth that you have messed up our economy. You have unfortunately ran the capital market, into a ditch, and the overborrowing by the government has resulted in a situation where individual, innocent, private, investors on the capital market are now being asked to bear the brand. But then,
Mr. Suman, let me just find out from you briefly. Do you think that is part of the angst, part of the resistance of people to, I mean, right from the e-levy to other bits that we've had to face? People say, look, even when you levy us, you tax us, what do we see by way of results? Do you feel that that failure to accept that something wrong was done, which has culminated in where we are, is also part of why some people are digging their heels in and not going along with our government?
yes, exactly, precisely the situation. Let's look at the situation of New Zealand. If the New Zealand Prime Minister, who today is leaving office, goes ahead to announce that I am providing a 3-year bond facility to the people of New Zealand, the confidence of the people of New Zealand to invest in that bond is high because they know that this is a lady who says that I'm done, I'm leaving, a new guy who is having a lot of modules in his system is coming to take over from me, or must be elected to take over from me. That's the level of transparency and trust building that we needed. And unfortunately, we don't have it now. Right from last year, when the e-levy debate, was at the fore, we have not had that level of confidence and trust in the management of our economy. Look, just this week, we are learning of government giving tax waiver to someone setting up a hotel that's not owned by the government, a hotel that's owned by the private person.
This issue of tax waivers is back. And, just to chip in, over the years, it's been so selective from administration to administration. I guess, I don't know how we'll deal with that problem. When you're done, maybe you could proffer some solutions.
No, but you see, meanwhile, the argument at the time of e-levy was that we are not raking enough taxes for the country, and therefore people should pay when they are transacting electronic business or electronic financial transactions. They must pay.
Right.
You are asking the Kaya or the woman who is struggling on the street of Accra, who sends 300 Ghana cedis, to the mother in the village in Boko or whatever, to pay e-levy. Meanwhile, you are giving that private investor or businessman, whatever, a tax waiver running into millions of cedis.
Right.
So the government that says that I cannot rake in enough revenue is giving away revenue free of charge to a private person, but rather punishing that young lady who is a kaya in Accra. That is the dichotomy we find ourselves. We are not being able to boldly tell ourselves the truth that this is wrong as a nation and it shouldn't happen again. It shouldn't happen that Ben, who works at multimedia, gets his income. A middle class person decides to save enough after paying his e-levy, save enough to invest on the capital market for a 3-year bond. That Ben expects that after 3 years, that he and his wife and his kids must be able to get some returns on it, which he will use to pay the school fees of his son or his daughter. That Ben is now told that, yes, we have taken your money. We promise you with a paper that in 3 years' time, government will give you this amount. However, government is unfortunately not going to give you this amount. He asked why. He said that, unfortunately, government has overborrowed. And because government has overborrowed, it has been locked out of the capital market. And for that reason, government needs to send off part of its indebtedness. How is government going to do that? Okay, in order for government to do the government needs the free space not to pay you what you deserve.
Right.
After taking your money, it cannot pay you. And therefore, government is getting into a negotiation with you to delay giving
so to move the conversation forward so we can get into other matters. If you were a bondholder, or if you had subscribed to an entity that had bonds using your funds, your deposits, would you, in the favor, in the national interest, in light of patriotism, say, go ahead, and use my bonds, participate in the domestic debt exchange program? Or would you have said, no, it is my money and I'm not going to, I don't want my money to be involved? So two things: patriotism, the national interest, as has been put forth, and personal interest on the other hand. Mind you, the finance minister has said that it is not obligatory, it is optional to partake in it. But of course, there could be consequences if you don't partake in it.
But Ben, those who are asking the public to be patriotic must themselves show patriotism.
Right.
If those who are asking us to be patriotic have taken the bold step that this year the government is expecting to spend over nearly 110 billion, and we are having to shed off about 50 billion of our indebtedness, and for which reason we are asking for a debt exchange program. Why can't the government itself reduce its expenditure for the year?
Right.
In order to allow the government itself have that space, that freedom to then come and say that we are looking for 50 billion to be set off. I've been able to set off, say, 30 or 40 billion. It left with 10 billion. Let's now discuss it with the banks.
So it's a fair point.
It's
a fair point you have. But just before we move on, and that also resonates with our latest budget statement, for example. You look at the deficits just keep getting bigger. And even as we're going for an IMF program, even as we are on the economic ropes, guess what? Our deficit is going to be about 61.4 billion. That's what our deficit is looking like. So we're increasing our deficit, we're increasing spending in some areas. How then do we, tighten the rope and get what must be secured?
Let me just do that. There's a story in the Bible where the prophet told David that there's a man who had a head of sheep. When he got a visitor, he decided not to kill any of his sheep. He decided to go for the man who had just one goat in his house to kill that goat for the visitor. The government is sitting on a lot of waste. The government is protecting the wastage in the system.
Right.
But it's asking that private citizen out there, that ordinary investor, Ben, for Ben to take the bullet, whilst the government is not taking any bullet. We are still seeing the convoys being run by government officials in town. We are still seeing them. We see how fat they are living. We are still seeing the holes in the system. We are still seeing how wasteful they are in government.
So I think the point is clear.
The presidential staffers who must be cut down, the number must be cut down in order to save the taxpayers some money. We are still seeing it. We are not seeing any bold steps to reduce the government expenditure in order for us to all cooperate.
And that is the question. And that analogy there from the Bible, I think it was the prophet Nathan speaking to David
Exactly.
In that incident. But let's just do this. Making Ghana Mecca for Pan-Africanism. December in Ghana boosts tourist arrivals. Now, tourist arrivals in the country for December last year rose by 16.37% to 98,873, showing a strong recovery from the heady days of the COVID-19 pandemic. Using data from the Kotoka International Airport, the Ghana Tourism Authority said the highest tourist arrivals for the month of December in recent times had been 116,438 international arrivals from all entry points in 2019, a feat achieved due to the year of return. However, the numbers declined in 2020 to 43,645. Subsequently, in 2021, the numbers picked up by 94.67% to 84,965, and now it has shot up again. So the GTA attributed the uptake in interest arrivals largely to its December in Ghana initiative. On the back page of the Daily Graphic, Bolgatanga Regional Hospital cries for dialysis center. And when it comes to some of these, I get heartbroken. Yes, every country would want to provide some of these equipment so that people can have access to them, and sometimes they can be subsidized. Imagine having, some of these illnesses, diabetes and the rest, and getting to the point where you need dialysis from time to time, you have kidney issues, and there's simply no access. Even when you're getting it here, it's so expensive. Then consider maybe having to go to other countries, South Africa and all of that. And we're already a hub for medical tourism, so to speak, in the sub-region. So if we don't have it, then it means that your options are very limited. We keep talking about health this and health that and Agenda 111, and we're building this, but these are crucial areas. I think sometime, I've forgotten whether it was last year or two, a lot was done in the UK, for example, when it comes to these things. But here, we see money being pumped into certain enterprises that don't see the light of day, and it gets problematic sometimes. We'll try to reconnect with Benjamin Asuman. But the Ghanaian Times very quickly says this morning, at UAE Business Forum, Ghana targets net zero emissions as it employs climate-friendly technologies and practices in mining. PAC orders arrest of 3 guarantors for guaranteeing for workers who breached bond conditions. DDE program brouhaha. Finance Ministry individual bondholder strike deal agreed to set up technical committee to address concerns. And Asin North MP files motion for review of Supreme Court ruling. So let's go to page 11 and pick those 2 stories there. The president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, says the government would collaborate with stakeholders around the world to explore Ghana's mineral resources in an environmentally friendly manner for national development. Mr. President, environmentally friendly. I'm glad you're saying that, but you know, in reality, especially under your tenure, we've lost a lot from our forest reserves, our forest cover, and what Galamsey has done to us. It is good that you're saying this. I heard you as well at COP27, but Mr. President, we must really get beyond the talk and protect what is ours, especially for future generations. But the rest of the story, he said the government would not only mine the minerals to boost export earnings, but add value along the minerals value chain with other sectors of the economy. Addressing the UAE Ghana Business Forum held on Tuesday on the sidelines of the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, President Akufo-Addo described mining as a key pillar of Ghana's economy and invited UAE investors for partnership. Let's go to that story of the Asin North MP. Lawyers of the Member of Parliament for Asin North constituency, James Jechi-Quayson, have filed a motion seeking the Supreme Court to review its November 22, 2022 ruling that dismissed a certiorari application filed by the MP. Mr. Chachu Chikata, the lead counsel for Mr. Quayson, went to the Supreme Court to challenge the decision of the Accra High Court, where the Attorney General is conducting criminal proceedings against his client. In July 2022, Mr. Chikata raised a preliminary legal objection and questioned the competence of the first prosecution witness, Richard Techimensa, but the trial High Court judge, Justice Mary Mami Eku, overruled the objection, noting that the witness was competent to give testimony. So the latest in there, another motion filed for a review of that Supreme Court ruling. On the back page, Black Galaxies face Sudan in make or break affair. And the Galaxies have their destinies in their own hands when they face the Secretary Birds of Sudan in a bubble or burst affair at the ongoing African Nations Championship in Algeria. Welcome back, Mr. Asuman. Let's quickly get into the rest of the papers. Exempt small bondholders, NPP to government. There's also woman hangs son and self, and arrest Ahmed Suale killers, GJA demands. Let's start with that story. I've been seeing Ahmed Hussein Suale trending for a while now. So the Ghana Journalists Association has called on the security agencies to expedite action on efforts being made to arrest the killers of Ahmed Hussein Suale, an investigative journalist in the employ of Tiger Eye Private Investigation, who was assassinated 4 years ago. Ghana, for 4 years ago. According to the GJA, in a statement issued yesterday, signed by Albert Kwabena Jumfor, president, it was, quote, saddened by the deafening silence and lack of action by the state authorities responsible for law enforcement to bring the perpetrators of Ahmed Hussein Suale's murder to book. And just to top up, exempt small bondholders, both stories on page 3 of the Daily Guide newspaper. National executives of the ruling New Patriotic Party have appealed to the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to grant exemptions to small bondholders in the ongoing debt exchange program announced by the government last year. General Secretary of the NPP, Justin Kodua Frimpong, said the party wants bondholders like pensioners to be excused from the program, calling on the government to find alternative ways for the DEP. Okay. So that is the situation there. Of course, we know the pensioners as a group have pulled themselves out, and now individual bondholders are on the chopping block. Mr. Suman, quick reflections on these two stories in about 30 seconds, if you can. You would have to unmute, Mr. Suman.
Oh,
okay, I think you're on. I can hear you now. I can hear you.
As somebody who used to be in the Inky fraternity, I feel a bit attached to what happened to Amesuale. If I decide to go through the motions of a young man who's trying to do his best to expose rot in the system, and having successfully done so, and he having been marked, on TV and all that as a target for attack,
right?
And he having been murdered, and 4 years after that, the police have not been able to crack this particular case. We have heard, somebody like Honorable Kennedy Japan say that he had been told by the former CID boss, Kenya Boa, he's now retired. Kenya Boa retired last year, that they have found the person. The police have found the person who was behind the murder.
Right.
And yet, to date, there's no police invitation to Honorable Kennedy Japan to come and explain what Kenya Boa told him. Kenya Boa has retired, he's gone home, and he has never been invited by the police. The police have not issued a statement that we are following up on what our former CID director told the honorable member of parliament. It's unfortunate. Right. It's unfortunate, but this case shouldn't have been a cold case. Unfortunately, we are getting it to become a cold case, and the police are not able to crack it. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Suman. We don't have more time to interact, but I just want to do these very quickly. The Chronicle, horror. Lady hangs herself and son. A young lady believed to be in her mid-20s has allegedly hanged her 5-year-old son and later hanged herself. The incident occurred in an uncompleted building at Adria Mantem near Adwa, a fishing community in the Ahanta West municipality. Now, it is not known why the young lady, whose identity is not known, decided to end her life together with her son, but information available indicated that the lady and the son, who do not hail from the community, were on Tuesday this week spotted at Adwa community begging for alms. And that gives you some sort of hint of why this could happen. The BNFT, producer inflation records huge decline to 52.2% in December 2022, and electricity tariffs should be lower, IES argues. Well, that's how we sew it up. We've been with Executive Director of Solidaire Ghana, Benjamin Suman, who joined us for that conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Suman, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ben.
Well, right before we get into sports, it's the grand finale of the Ghana Science and Tech Explorer Prize Challenge. 50 schools from Greater Accra and the Ashanti regions are ready to showcase the prototype products aimed at solving societal challenges. Which team, though, will emerge winner of the G-Step Challenge? The finals will be held at the Accra International Conference Center. The date is Wednesday, the 25th of January, 2023. The time is 3 p.m. sharp. There will also be an exhibition by our young ones as they seek to provide solutions to the myriad problems in our environment. Make a date with us and be part of the first ever award ceremony to reward our future innovators and inventors. G-Step Challenge is organized by Dream Oval and supported by Foundation Bortner and Joy Prime. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying. Up next, all the action in sports.